Hey, welcome to the Glen Podcast, the best podcast you'll listen to all day. Sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Question from a good friend of mine about allegiance.
I pledge allegiance?
No, allegiance.
Allegiance.
You know, have you seen the movie A Few Good Men?
Yes, I have.
They have four
You can't
tenets.
handle the truth.
You're right.
You can't handle the truth.
I can't. But what did they say in A Few Good Men? Unit?
So they're interviewing one of the cadets, and they're talking about the code reds, where the guy's getting his well, he died because of some internal unit discipline, because they have, as I understand it in the military, little subunits that are part of a bigger unit that's part of the core group that's then part of the Marines, and there's subclassifications. So in there, they're interviewing him about where his loyalties lie, and it's unit, core, God, country.
Unit, core, God, and country. Yeah, I think that's right.
Is it right, or is it country, God?
No,
unit,
I
core,
think,
country, God.
No, it's unit, core, God, and country.
Unit, core. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen A Few Good Men a few times, no pun intended, and it's really great. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great show. You know, there's some exceptions about vulgarity, but it's a military show, and I've been.
But Tom Cruise on his way up after Top Gun movie, like that was like his next big role that he really did awesome in.
He did pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, for Tom Cruise, he did pretty good.
Yeah, for being a Scientologist.
I mean, he's a formula actor.
He really.
I mean,
is.
he's this cocky kid who's smarter and more talented and
better looking,
and then all of a sudden he has kind of a conversion. He becomes humble in the end.
You're right.
Yeah. Anyway,
kind of like us.
So, what is the natural order of things as far as, I mean, you and I, we love our God, we love our family, we love our country.
I think the context fits. Like, unit is our family. Our core is our extended family, where we came from, our parents, and then God, and then everything else.
Okay, so what's number one? I mean,
got to be the family unit. Got to be the unit.
Really? You would put that at the top?
Absolutely, because if the unit's not good, then none of it's good.
Okay, but what about putting God first? I mean,
I think God is number one. Well, that's a good.
I mean, God is family. I mean, St. John Paul II said God is the first family, because there's a father who has a son, and the father gives his entire self to the son. The son receives the father. He gives his entire self back to the father. There's the Holy Spirit. There's a Trinity, 3 in 1. It's the first family.
And I guess we did talk about that this weekend with our pastor in our discussion about John. Can't say the verse and lines, but
somewhere in the Bible.
Somewhere in the Bible in John, it talks about that God should be our number one, and that we can be family, but not all of us in the family can be believers. Even though we say it's really interesting. There was a study that was done a number of years ago where they looked at 60 to 70% of Americans identify as being Christian.
What does that mean?
Well, they believe that they're Christian.
So they believe, but they necessarily don't practice.
Right.
Those are two different things.
Correct. And then the second part of that 70% that believe they're Christians, then the things that they believe in under the Christian tent are way not Christian things. And so then the disconnect between what being a Christian is, to be under the umbrella of God and under the umbrella of Jesus' holy and sacred blood, people who identify as Christian are saying that abortion is okay. And that doesn't compute and doesn't calculate with what being a Christian is supposed to be. And so that was the really interesting thing, is that if you're not aligned with God's law, God's order, and his goodness and mercy, then you don't get to go to heaven.
Or it's really difficult to get into heaven.
Right.
I mean, right. I mean,
it's either you're in or you're out. I mean, this isn't a trial of, well, you got it 90% of the way, and I'll let you slip in if you do an extra 5% extra credit. Like, there's no extra credit when you die. Like, it's either you're in or you're out.
So at the moment of death is the key. I mean, right.
Right. Because that's where you have to just have that humility, I guess, to live a Christ-centered life. So I would say, yeah, I guess you're right. God has to be number one, or a Christ-centered life has to be number one, with the family, to the extended family, and then to our country.
So if you think
I stand corrected.
it's nothing new here in the podcast, by
This
the
is
way.
true.
But so if you think about it this way, the way I explain the Trinity, I mean, I wish I came up with that. That's
Where is it in the Bible? I forget.
the word Trinity.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll find it. Maybe it's in the Precious Moments Bible
Okay.
somewhere or next to the Special K-Bar recipe.
Oh, okay. Remember, we got to come back. I got a funny, really thing to tell you about that.
Special K. I'll do my best to remember
Okay,
that.
got it.
So the first family is all about self-donation, the giving of persons to one another, right? The Father empties himself, gives himself to the Son. Son receives. Son does the same thing. The human family is much like that. The man gives his entire self to his spouse, the bride. We have to make a distinction between man and woman today when it comes to matrimony. The bride receives the gift from the man, and there's a whole nother person. So the first family, we reflect the first family, the second family. So God has to be number one. I don't see any way around it because we mirror the Trinity.
I see that.
But if we don't do that, and we're going to talk about this in our next podcast, what happens when the roles get mixed up? What happens to family and culture? That's next week.
Dun, dun, dun.
So everything has to be secondary to God and family. Well, secondary is not the right word, but thirdary.
Everything else after.
Everything else after. So it seems to me God, family, country.
So how do you do that? Our average listener out here, they got a boss that they're trying to make happy. They got a business to take care of. They got food to put on the table. They got a mortgage because they got to keep the banker happy. How do you put God first?
Well, I think you have to surrender your entire being to him. That's what we owe him. He is the creator, the
What do you
giver.
mean surrender?
Surrender?
Yeah, what do you mean surrender? Because I think of like waving white flag, like I give up.
Well, it is a bit like that. It's Lord, I don't want to live the life that you've given me the way I want. I want to live it the way you want. It's Matthew 7:21. It's doing the Father's will.
But what happens if God says, I don't want you to have this big house, and I don't want you to have 3 cars, and I don't want you to have a boat?
Then you say, oh, okay.
I think that's really hard for people.
That's hard for me. And I don't have a big house and a boat. You know, I want a new guitar. I don't need a new guitar, but I want one. It's hard for me. So I think there are some in the Catholic Church, and you would have the same in the Protestant movement. You have people who have done very well of saying, Lord, whatever you want, I want to serve you. And those are the people we look towards when time gets hard, because we're both married men. I've been married almost 18 years. You've been married almost
10.
And you need to look at people who have made it 25 and 35 and 45,
My
right?
parents are going on 60.
Right. So we have to have those icons, people that we look to figure out how to do this. So we look to the saints in the Catholic Church. I look to St. Francis of Assisi. He's on my A team. Catherine of Siena. I love Catherine of Siena. We have different people, different saints that comes in different times of our lives to give us inspiration to keep moving forward. So God has to be first in my life. God has to be first in my wife's life. If that isn't the proper order, it's going to be a rough or a longer marriage. Because if we don't have that correct, how do the other chips fall? You know, they won't fall the right way. And if God's not first in my life and in my wife, then that's how we teach our kids. This is the model we teach our kids, like God doesn't have to be first. And hence, you wonder why men are wearing pink hair today. And this is how we get that. I mean, this is how we get to that point. Not unless, of course, you're working for the circus. That might be something different. Having pink hair and having, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely some serious clowns out there.
Wearing skirts and
Kilts. They're called kilts.
well, no. Not the men I'm talking about. We have one in our hometown, and we got to pray for these people.
Yep.
So, yeah, surrender is, like Rich Mullins said, surrender don't come natural to me. I'd rather fight you for something I don't really want than take what you give that I need.
You know, we say that about entrepreneurs because, you know, being self-employed, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who's willing to work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40.
That sounds about right.
Isn't it? I mean, for a lot of us out there that are listening to this, I mean, whether they're farming or if they're in their own small business or if they're a salesman, I mean, you think about every minute you spend away from your kids, your wife, your home. What are you doing at that time? For me, it's all about my business. It's all about providing and keeping a roof over their head and providing for their future and providing for their current needs and trying to keep my wife happy. Like that's it. And that's the only reason I'm away from home. Because if it was about being home and doing what I wanted to do, boy, I wouldn't be gone as much.
So if you work it backwards, if you want to have a successful country, right?
Okay.
Don't we want that?
I'm looking at this with you. Yeah. Okay,
A successful country. That means we have to have successful marriages, right? And if you want to have a successful marriage, that means you have to have a successful relationship with the giver of all, the creator, the Father. And everything's flipped upside down today.
Well, I think it's been flipped upside down since the beginning when we said no to God in the garden.
Right.
And it's been this constant struggle back to be in grace. And no, God really has forgiven us, and that's why he sent Jesus, was to forgive the world of their stupidity and do it through my son, through his son. And we still don't fully own how big of a sacrifice and how real that gift was, that we can live in peace and that we can be okay just living for him. Because our culture doesn't promote that. We've gotten rid of the TV at our house because our kids just were watching, and I want this toy, and I want this toy, and I want this, and I want to buy this. And it's like, why do you need crap? You don't need crap. Like, that isn't how mom and dad live. But because they saw it on TV and they saw 3 kids playing with it for 30 seconds, and that sure looks like fun, I want one of those. Go outside. Get a bucket. Dump water on your kid's head.
And that's why we watch black and white shows for most part. We watch 2 shows, the Andrew Griffith Show and the Dick Van Dyke Show. And the kids watch a few others, and of course we limit that. But who wants to be a kind of a person who's got their head on a screen all day long?
But I don't have my cell phone up here today because some of our watchers have commented. But look at your screen time. How many hours a day are you putting your nose into that? It's just another screen.
Yeah, we're not really living.
No. And we're not looking, we're looking down, not looking up.
That's exactly right. So it's got to be God first, family next, and then country third. Now, I know there may be moments in time where you have to do something extraordinary for your country, right? Fight in a war. But what's difficult is a lot of our wars, I don't think, are just wars.
No.
Not that we're going to get into the just war theory another day for a podcast. But I don't know of any wars in the last 100 years or so. Again, I'm not a historian, but are they just wars? Like the Iraq War. That's one of the recent ones, right?
Oh, yeah. And we'll think about even back to the 80s. What was the big war then?
The Gulf War.
No,
the 80s. I don't remember.
War on drugs.
Oh, that war.
I mean, we use the word war so casually. But yet there's entire governmental function that when you use the word war that gives Congress power, that gives the judicial system power, it gives military power to act, mobilize, and function that people aren't even aware of. And to put it back in the context we're talking about today about God, family, extended family, and then our country, there's a part of that you really have to be conscious of being godly men and being godly women in a country, expecting that of your government and of your people that you live around.
That's exactly right. So I think this is pretty easy. What do you want, ladies and gentlemen? Do you want a healthy country? You have to have a healthy marriage. You want a healthy marriage? You have to have a healthy relationship with God. And if there is no God, well, we're all screwed.
So what's the formula? What's the formula for having a healthy, so we reversed engineered, healthy country, healthy marriage, healthy relationship with God. So let's engineer that out for our listeners. How does that healthy relationship with God start? Sunday morning?
Yes, of course.
Only?
No. You have to fulfill the third command to worship God on the seventh day.
Oh, we have to honor the Sabbath?
Honor the Sabbath still.
To keep it holy?
Yeah, I mean, God made those 10 commandments. Jesus didn't undo the 10. I mean, because he's the one who gave them to us. Jesus would not give us the 10 and say, oh, we don't have to do the 10 commandments anymore.
So, question for you.
Yeah.
So, we're honor the Sabbath to keep it holy. What does that mean? Does that mean I don't go to my job and do my work on Sunday? Or does that mean I don't do any work on Sunday? I got an aunt, God bless her, has never cooked a meal on Sunday in her entire married life. And she's going on 55 years married to the same husband. They only ever eat leftovers. They could microwave them, but the dishes didn't get done till Monday morning. That's how they interpreted the Sabbath day. Like, no work meant no work.
I don't think that's quite how I would do it, but I think I give them kudos for doing it that way. I think that's great. I knew a family in Rapid City, same thing. My understanding is, as a Catholic boy, is if I am an engineer and I work at 3M, I do not work on Sunday. If I'm a doctor and I work in the emergency room, I would have to work on Sunday. There's people that have to work on Sunday. Doctors, nurses, firemen, police, priests, pastors.
Right.
They're working on Sunday. But for the rest of us, we're supposed to rest in that.
And you can, I fall in that doctor category. And luckily I have a clinic that I control the hours. But I know medical physicians and stuff, like you said, work weekend shifts. They're delivering babies. They're needed. But then they take their rest day as a different day, and they honor, they do their worship, their downtime a different day of the week. Is that how that works for the clergy?
Yes. The clergy do need a day off, but they shouldn't worship their day off. Or doctors shouldn't worship their day off. Sorry about your kid that's got a fever, but I'm on my day off. I can't come over.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Right.
And God provides rest.
Okay, so we start with Sunday. Then what's next? How else are we going to make this relationship with God better?
So then you have to spend time with him. You know, you and I are friends. I have other friends. I spend time with them. I talk to them. And so I would promote a personal prayer time section of your day, preferably in the morning, because for me, if I don't, the devil keeps me busy of all these other things I got to get done all of a sudden. So spending time in prayer. But you also have to have a certain mission. See, he just doesn't want us to pray and worship him. He wants us to do. And that's Matthew 7:20. It's all over the Old and New Testaments. To do. What is the work that God has put before you? And I don't want to get in the faith and works stuff with the Protestants, because I think you got it wrong. Most of you Protestants, you got it right. You get it. You get it right. That's another day. But we are supposed to, I mean, think about all that Jesus did, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't just have faith and believe. No. He healed. I mean, he worked hard when he worked hard. You know, then he prayed hard when he prayed hard. Yeah. So we have to have some kind of mission. And when you get into your personal prayer life, you begin to understand what your mission is. And because you ask, Lord, what is my mission? What do you want me to do for you? Right? And God wants to do it through you. He'll do it, but we have to say yes. Okay? So if you want more information on that, look at Luke 3:4. Jesus was baptized. Did he need it? No. But he's showing us that we should get baptized, and the Spirit fell upon him to do work. So anyway,
this is my son.
So you need to spend time with God. Yeah, you need to spend time with God and to be on a certain mission. Every day.
Okay. So that's the reverse engineering relationship better with God than in our family. I'm assuming the same type of formula, spending a little bit of time with our wife, our kids, pray with them, pray over them, connect with them.
Right. There's no better entertainment than having kids. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a couple and you have motorcycles and those are your kids, I mean, that's cool. But honestly, it's not going to work. You're not going to be happy. And I listened to Jordan Peterson on this.
Uh-huh.
And
he's got a great line on it.
What's his line?
His line is, there's no greater joy than the love of a child.
That's exactly right. And if I mean,
they love you unconditionally. They don't know anyone else to love because you brought them to this world.
Right.
And love the damn little things. I mean, they're annoying and they spill and they pee and they make a mess, but not that you disregard it, but you set all that aside for the smile and the laugh and the giggle. Like, that's so worth it. It's
Oh, my goodness.
so worth it.
I went home this weekend, and my mom and 2 sisters were there. I have 7 sisters, but 2 of them were there. And they said, Ave, tell us about going to the Ark. So she came to me and said, Papa, can you leave the room so I can talk to these guys? I said, sure. So I left the room, but I recorded around the corner. She talked and talked and talked and talked, and they laughed, and they had such a moment. Now, let's say they were watching TV. That would have never happened.
No, they wouldn't have been focused on her.
So things get in the way of relationships. And ladies and gentlemen, you really have to be aware of our devices, our technology, whatever it is. There's always been something that will get in your way.
That would be a great challenge for our listeners on this podcast, especially like on the YouTube side, is share a picture wherever you're at while you're listening to this or the next public place you go into, and take a picture of the grocery line. Take a picture of the line at the post office. Take a picture of sitting in the doctor's office and of what everyone is doing. It'll blow your mind when you start paying attention to everyone else and what they're doing versus what you're doing. And that's, living in your device.
I can guess what they're doing.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible.
And I'm in that boat with many people. I still struggle putting the damn thing down. I can't, because I use the word
hard to.
I use the word damn on purpose because it's damning my relationships.
Right. But everything's there. Your bank accounts, your cell phones, your text messages, your Snapchats, your Facebook, of the things going on with all the other people that aren't there with you.
So if you can get the God part right, and for us, we're Christians, and so we think that's the best way, and I would say best and only way, but I'm not going to say that Muslims and Jews and anybody can get to heaven from my point of view. It's through the person of Christ. You might have to find a loophole.
Well, didn't you find that at the Ark this last week, that there's a flood story in every major religion?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's the Hopi Indies or if it's the Filipinos, and everybody's got a flood story.
Yeah, everybody's got a
Tell
flood
me
story.
that is not weird and ironic to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want a healthy country, it starts with God. It starts with family. And if you refuse to worship God, your opening comment about Christians, do they practice or just say they're a Christian? Right? We can't have Christians just saying they're Christians and not doing anything about their Christianity. In other words, if you were on trial, and this is my final point, and I'll let you jump in. My final point here is, if you're on trial of being a Christian, would you be found innocent or guilty by what you do?
Because that's what's going to happen.
That is what's going to happen.
That's what's going to happen.
I mean, you're going to get before Christ, and he'll say to you, he doesn't have to say a word. You'll know immediately. Mm-hmm. But I gave you so many opportunities to serve me, and you continue to refuse. I don't understand why.
Constantly reject him. I would put it this way, that I think in our modern culture, with all the things that we have been spoon-fed and shoved down our throat and the cultural confusion that's been created, that people think in the terms that Christ is like Santa Claus. He's got a naughty and a nice list. And if you do just enough nice things that outweigh the naughty, you're still going to get the present. Like, you're still going to get the gift at the end. And I believe in a much harsher line that isn't true. That if you keep knowingly going against the line, and you keep crossing that line, and you keep doing it, God's grace and mercy is what brings you back over it. It isn't about the work you do. It isn't about all the right things you do. It's how many times do you come back and go, damn it, I did the same thing again, Lord. Help me. Please strengthen my heart. Please strengthen my words. Please strengthen my mind. I'm going to get burned by the fire. Just please help me. And someday it'll work. Someday my strength will be there. But today, I know I still struggle.
So God is a God of mercy.
Hopefully.
And if you haven't done anything about your relationship with him, do something right now. You can get on your knees right now. Or just go sit in a chair right now.
And tell him the truth.
Yeah.
Don't lie, because he already knows. He can handle the truth. Can you? Can you handle the truth?
And that's a great way to end this podcast. It really is. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do something about your relationship. Tell him the truth. He loves to hear it anyway. Tell him the truth and create a relationship with him. Amen?
Amen.
Well, anything else to add?
No, I think this is exactly it. He already knows you're a sinner. He already knows that you screw up. Like, stop thinking you're so perfect and stop thinking that you're the only one that's doing the naughty thing, because you're not. But you can be the first one in your family to acknowledge it and ask for God to help.
Well, remember, ladies and gentlemen, you are loved, and may God strengthen
the bars of your gates.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Glen Podcast, sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Mission Blueprint is a nonprofit ministry started by Glen and Jamie to sanctify the family. Our income is donation-based, and we need your help. Please support us financially by going to www.mission-blueprint.org and be a part of our financial team. Thank you, and may God strengthen the bars of your gate.